Chapter 17, the Epistles. At the end of the last chapter, chapter 16, we learned that Paul tried to teach about the gospel in Athens to the most intellectual people. And he was deeply disheartened about it because they ignored him. They just simply, thought that he was a lunatic. They didn't care about it all. He wished that at least he would, be received with some struggles. But no, the intellectuals really didn't care much about what he had to say. The teachings were not for them. But Emmanuel describes to us that Paul was so crushed by that refusal, by that, by the being ignored by the Athenians, that when he received the visit by Timothy, Lois' grandson, he had to leave Athens and go to Corinth, and he decided to travel again, and he said, "But how come? You're sick. You can't travel," Timothy said. And amazing as it is, he teaches us something that is very, very important. "But what can I tell? I am ill." And he says, as long as we can work, we should view it as a tonic for all ills. Besides, it is right that we take advantage of the time and opportunity. And he says, why wait? Why wait? And he says, I've always had the conviction that God is in an urgent need of a job well done. A job well done. And he marches towards the next city. Once he is in Corinth, and in many steps, Emmanuel describes to us that the churches that are growing everywhere where he has already been, and other disciples as well, the synagogues were emptying out. And of course, the Pharisees were quite upset about it. Struggles mounted to another level. But Paul himself, he kept himself, working hard as he could. But one day, he heard about, Paul, they need you at that city. Paul, they need you at the other city. The church is facing struggles. Another church is facing struggles elsewhere. At that time, my friends, no internet, no TV, no radio, no DVD, no CD, no VCR. He was anguished. And as a good, faithful man, when we are anguished, we pray. He prayed so fervently that Jesus himself came through him and said, don't worry. Fear not, he said. Fear not, Paul. I will write through you, and you will share this with everyone. Don't worry about it. I will speak through you, and you can send them the letters, the famous epistles. But Emmanuel discloses something to us that is probably something that is still puzzling historians to date, which is the mechanism of this writing. Paul was an intellectual. He knew very fluent Hebrew, Greek, Latin. He could write and speak very well. He didn't need anybody to write for him, but he had people writing for him. What we call here the amanuenses. So after he was counseled to write, this is page 520. It's really worth reading Jesus' explanation. Do not torment yourself with the needs of this endeavor. Of course, you cannot help everybody personally at the same time, but it's possible to help them simultaneously through the power of Spirit. He couldn't understand it right away. And he said, you can solve the problem by writing to all and everyone. And he started doing so. And then Emmanuel discloses to us one most important phenomenon to us. Teamwork. Teamwork again and again. The epistles were worked at this level. Emmanuel discloses to us, it's actually a revelation, that the epistles were worked at a teamwork level. So Jesus would inspire Paul, and through Stephen, he would send the messages, Stephen in the spirit realm, and Paul would have a supporting team. He would never be alone. Never. He would have people to assure that when he lacked inspiration, others would give him the inspiration. So for the people who nowadays think, oh, I'm a medium, I need to work by myself, I work better. No, don't go there. We in Spiritism, we work in this fashion because as Kardec, the researcher, the investigator of spirit phenomena, he clarifies to us that when we are working our mediumship among others, less likely spirits of inferior levels will deceive us. And on the contrary, when we have higher spirits, we'll have a greater amount of current, let's say this way in modern terms, and then we'll be greatly enhancing this communication between two realms. So Paul himself had people helping him out, and he was not the one writing. He had in this case the amanuenses. The first ones were Timothy and Silas, not because he didn't know how to write, but because he felt he could be more inspired. He could allow, as if he were in a trance, receive the messages they would write, and those would be the memorable epistles that to date can serve the purpose of guiding us, not only in our daily lives as a person, but as a group, a spiritual group, a spiritist group, and then the progress of the transformation of society as well. This is beyond just a sectarian religion. It's about the universal teachings that are in those epistles. Teamwork effort. And Emmanuel continues to describe to us that they kept on traveling from one place to the other. And what were they doing? Distributing consolation and healing. Always Paul had a plan, a work plan for the dissemination. Some people think that he was just like, oh, let's go to that next city. No, he had plans. There were reasons why. And remember, he never charged anyone for what he was doing. Not only that, but he worked. He had his manual labor as a weaver during the day. And that would help sustain the efforts of that dissemination, just like we in Spiritism do nowadays. And this is another parenthesis for us. We know that in this most consumist society, in this society, we have this push to say, but time is money. And we would reply, no, God does not charge us for the time that we are given for free. Oh yes, we have to pay our bills, but there are so many ways to pay our bills. And not necessarily we'll pay by exchanging God's gifts, because they are not ours. We cannot do that. We need to be free from those attachments in order to really receive the credit and the merit of higher inspiration. And then we go back to that teaching in this chapter, that for us is the final step when he's asked to come to Jerusalem and back again. We should not stop the good work, because God is in urgent need for a good work well done. Let us think about it as we prepare for the next chapter.